Okay, look, if you've been hanging out with me for any degree of time here on the internet, you have figured out that I get super excited about storytelling. I think it is such a foundational aspect of humanity and of faith. I think it's such a big deal for how we relate to each other and understand each other. I think it's full of truth. Storytelling conveys truth in both literal ways and in figurative ways. And I just delight in various story beats and patterns that happen in that kind of thing. And so I know that through the book of Esther, which is one of the great literary achievements of all time, one of the great stories of all time, there's going to be a lot of moments where you're real excited. I'm like, this is a great part. You got to get excited about this part with me. I also understand that when I do that every single chapter for 6 chapters, you might eventually start to be like, well, but you said that last time. But here's the thing, my friend. I was right last time, because that was awesome. And the thing before that was awesome too. And the moment that we're getting to here between chapter 5 and chapter 6 is also awesome. This is the moment in high stakes storytelling. Somebody pointed out to me that I kept saying the phrase yesterday, by the way, high stakes, again and again. And then I was patting myself on the back for not cracking any jokes throughout the whole thing about impalement on a 75-foot high stake. But it was an accident. It doesn't count. That thing Jeff did at the end with New Kids on the Block, that was his own dang fault. I had nothing to do with that. I can't possibly be held responsible for it. But what I'm trying to say is that I love the moment in a story where everybody knows that we are on the eve of battle, either literal or metaphorical. All the tension is about to be resolved tomorrow. One way or another, this thing is going down. And I love it in stories when you have that moment of pause as everybody reflects on exactly where they're at. It happens in Shakespeare plays very famously on the eve of battle. Maybe the king will dress up in disguise to go and reflect with his soldiers to see what they're thinking about facing their potential fate, their maybe dying day tomorrow, or maybe their greatest glory ever tomorrow. You'll even see this motif in video games or like anime, Japanese style storytelling, where the two characters have got the little bead of sweat on their brow and they're staring each other down because this is about to go down and we're about to see how it works out. And I particularly love the way musicals and stage productions do this. One of the most memorable examples of the eve of battle motif is in the song One Day More from Les Miserables. I never know if I'm saying that right because there's like a whole French there at the end where just all the consonants and vowels just kind of blurb together. I just don't know when you stop saying miserables. Do you stop it like just after the S, Les Miserables, or do you stop after the B, Les Miserables? I don't know. I don't speak French. I'm not even fluent or even conversational really in French accent. That's the very best I got. But in that song, what I do know is that pretty much every one of the characters who is arrayed for battle, some of them literally the next day, every single one of them checks in and tells you how they're thinking as they stare out at the same moon on the eve of all of this stuff going down. And so Jean Valjean, the reformed thief and the recipient of unmerited grace who we followed through the whole story, he says, one day more, another day, another destiny, this never-ending road to Calvary, these men who seem to know my crime will surely come a second time. One day more, he knows his fate is coming due the next day. I mean, it's the time crunch thing, right? This is what we're talking about this week. The time crunch is what makes all the characters aware that this is all going down. Marius, name derived from a great Roman leader and general and politician in the 1st century BC, the name that really means something to me because my kid brother, before he died, he was getting ready to play the part of Marius, or had been preparing for that part and practicing the musical role. And that's a name that's just stuck with me and has mattered to me for a long time. This young man, full of optimism, says, I did not live until today. How can I live when we are parted? Well, his heart has been awakened by love for this Cosette character. And together they sing, tomorrow you'll be worlds away, and yet with you my world has started. And then the character Eponine, who is grieving her isolation, sings one day more all on my own, one day more with him not caring. And then you get this really cool contrast between Marius, who's distracted from having a French Revolution right now, then one of his buddies who's putting barricades up in revolutionary Paris getting ready to go and fight, and they're going back and forth. One day more before the storm. Do I follow where she goes? At the barricades of freedom, shall I join my brothers there? When our ranks begin to form, do I stay or do I dare? Will you take your place with me? And their heads are in totally different places. And then we hear from Javert, the big law-following bad guy. One day more till revolution. We will nip it in the bud. We'll be ready for these schoolboys. They will wet themselves with blood. That last part was a little dark, but the line is the line. And look, I'm not going to give you the whole song, but I could. I mean, it's powerful. It's dramatic. It's excellent. But I do want you to feel along with me the emotion that is stirred by this motif, this bit of storytelling, this brief pause, this brief calm before the storm as everybody takes stock of their life and their mortality and their love and their prime directive, the chief thing they care about and what they're trying to achieve, their chief pursuit in life and what it means if they should perish the following day or if they should thrive the following day. That is what we are getting in the seam between Esther chapter 5 and Esther chapter 6. 5 leaves us off with peril that we didn't see coming. We knew things were bad because Haman was planning a genocide, but it felt like we still had a little bit of time. We didn't know exactly when the day of reckoning was going to be, but because of Haman's drunken antics at this party, the day of reckoning has to be tomorrow, right here in chapter 6. It's all come to a head. Some of the characters know it explicitly. Some of them are intuiting it, but I imagine that between 5 and 6, Queen Esther is on her balcony, looking out at the moon, reflecting on the way she's played her hand. Maybe praying. We don't know that she did that, but maybe praying for guidance, maybe reflecting on words of wisdom, maybe rehearsing what she would say, maybe thinking about her mom and dad and what they would say and what advice they would give if they were still alive. Then the camera pulls back from that balcony, pivots and swings down through the lower courts. Things get dingier and dirtier the further the camera goes, through kitchens and dark corners in the underbelly of the palace, finally maybe through some kind of sewer grate outside. And who is sitting there at the gate? But it's Mordecai the Jew, who doesn't know that tomorrow he is scheduled to die. Mordecai the Jew looks up at the same moon, thinking about Esther and whether or not she's having success. And as he stares at that moon, he hears a creaking sound in the distance and has a bad feeling about things as he sees a stake that is destined for some poor soul who's run afoul of the crown, being pulled vertical directly in his line of sight to that bright full moon. The camera swings away from Mordecai as he reflects on what dark tidings these might be, and it weaves its way through the city, through poor neighborhoods, slightly richer neighborhoods, and into a beautiful, immaculate manor. The camera pushes through the long, flowy curtains on the veranda and into a bedroom where Haman's wife is sleeping deeply and happily, and where Haman is staring at the ceiling with his fingers folded and crossed behind his head, with a smug look of satisfaction on his face as he can see out the window his gallows being erected as well. The camera pulls away from Haman and flies out another window. Now, like a bird high above the city, you can see all of Susa that had been so unsettled, and it drops back down to the most magnificent, well-lit part of the city and into the bedchambers of the last of the 4 big characters we've been following, who has a rendezvous with destiny scheduled for the next day. Here is King Xerxes, but he's not with a woman, and he's not asleep. He can't sleep. Something's on his mind. As he too hears the construction of these great gallows in the distance, something is nagging at him. Something is out of place. And for whatever reason, he makes the fateful decision on this fateful eve of battle and destiny to call in one of his chroniclers and have him crack open the Chronicles of the King and read back to him the official accounts of a random portion of his reign. And that is going to change everything. We'll look at how this fateful night on the eve of battle plays out in Esther chapter 6 next time around. I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast. Let's do this again soon.